Welcome to Marketing Unmasked with Professor Gaffney. I'm here with Emily Auvil, who will be our guest speaker today. Emily is a lead campaign manager at 8451, has extensive research in all forms of marketing, even when she worked at Scripps and Landor, etc. I know Emily personally. We got our masters together at the University of Cincinnati, and also did a little bit of consulting together for other local companies. Today she'll be going into exactly what she does at 8451, and I've asked her to dive down into the details and respect to the marketing research she does at 8451. But it's good to get a broad perspective, so I'm really excited to Emily. I think that's it. Is there anything else you want to add before you begin?
Nope. I'm going to start off by just giving some real life experiences in the market research realm that I've worked in my career. So we will have some fun examples. Ryan did send me a few questions you guys had. So if I don't answer them during the presentation, I'm sure he'll bring them up at the end. What did you say?
I certainly will.
All right. Can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Okay, why isn't it? Why isn't it going to full screen mode now? Lovely. There we go. All right. This is Marketing Unmasked with Professor Gaffney and Emily Auvil. I'm going to give you a little bit about my education, my work history, and then a little bit about market research. So I started off my undergrad at St. Louis, and I was pre-med. What was I thinking? I don't know. I switched to Ohio University, where I majored in marketing and international business with a minor in Spanish, and then I went to UC and got my MBA and my MS marketing, which is how I met Brian. I started working at Landor right after undergrad, and I was a client associate, and so I worked with consumers on big brands such as Tide, Downy, in-store signage for Walmart, and I worked a lot on package design and trend work. And then I went to EW Scripps, where I was on their internal design agency and managed a lot of the relationships between creative, internal, and internal clients for digital creative. I then went to 8451, where I am a senior campaign manager on the communications team. So I lead end-to-end processes for loyalty communication campaigns targeted at Kroger shoppers. And I'll get more into what that actually means later in the presentation. But basically, the consumers that I work with are those shopping at Kroger or the affiliated banners across the country. And then I also work with internal sales team and Kroger corporate, making sure that we're bringing to life the marketing communication plans while keeping Kroger's best customers in mind. So to dive in a little bit about market research is used when businesses and their leaders want to make decisions based on the facts instead of feelings. So it allows for businesses to really dive into what the consumer mindset is to make decisions based on their own, instead of what their gut is or what they're feeling. So primary research is when you gather and collect your own information set, whether that's via watching human interaction, or through surveys or plus card data. This is usually a more expensive route because it takes more time and resources to get the job done. And secondary is utilizing research that's already out there, whether that's a public record or something that you can easily, dig into on the internet. Sometimes you have to pay for it, but it's usually less time expensive because someone else has already completed the work for you. And Ryan, if you have any questions while I'm going through this, feel free to jump in and ask those. So primary market research, there are two forms, which is qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is a primary form of research based on watching human behavior. So examples are focus groups, participation observation, interviews, really just interacting with humans to figure out what they're thinking. Quantitative is more numbers based. It's based on collecting data, and that's a lot of what we do at 8451. So I'm about to walk through two examples, one when I've used qualitative data and one when I've used quantitative, and we'll get through those. So the first is a qualitative research example. And I actually did this example this actual form of market research when I worked at Landor. Downy was getting ready to redesign their package. And so they asked us to go out and to have some focus groups with consumers. So we went up to a research facility in a small town in Chicago where they have actual floor sets of grocery stores, and the customers that we selected within our target group would walk through the aisles and point out the different packaging that we had created to see if clients wanted to interact with that. We also had a group of people go into a room and answer some questions. So I thought this would be a fun little example that we could do with Professor Gaffney. So he is kind enough to have a pen and paper. Before we dive into this research anymore, I don't know, Ryan, do you use fabric softener?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Well, then you should be in the target group. I don't actually use it. So I was going to say, like, when they asked me to draw this, I had no idea what I was drawing. So normally the target audience or the people that you would be bringing into a focus group would be someone that's shopped in your market. Like, I wouldn't necessarily, for myself, I don't ride motorcycles. I don't have motorcycles. So I wouldn't be selected for a focus group for Harley unless they were trying to target like someone like me to purchase Harley. So I'm going to ask Ryan to draw what he currently thinks the Downy bottle looks like.
Oh man. All right.
All right. And then I guess you'll have to hold it up.
You're exposing my right here.
I drew an example in here too, so you'll be able to see mine.
I really didn't look at this beforehand.
So it's a real live example.
All right. Something like that.
All right. What does that say? Downy. What does that say on there?
I just put like
Type.
picture and type.
All right. All right. Awesome. So we would have consumers just like Ryan come in and draw what they thought the Downy looked like. And I do know one of your questions was, how do projects like this start? Normally, like the consumer packaged goods company like P&G or Pepsi or one of those large retailers would come to an agency, or they sometimes have an agency of record for their brand. So the agency of record really makes sure that they're keeping the look of the packaging on brand, so that when a new scent or a new flavor comes out, that it looks consistent across all of the packaging. So Downy was ready to start talking to millennials. They'd gotten a lot of feedback or done a lot of their own, just talking as an organization, and realized that Downy is usually a brand that people say my mom used, but they weren't using it themselves. So they really wanted to refresh the look of their Downy packaging. And so we were doing market research. And one of the market research questions was, does the girl on the Downy bottle make a difference? So when we had consumers draw the packaging, this is what a lot of them drew. They knew that the lid was pink. They knew that the bottle was blue. Some people thought there was a bear, which is actually a competitor of Downy. Some people drew a little girl. Some people didn't draw anything. As you can see on Ryan's example, he did put a little squiggly thing that said picture. I don't know if he was thinking in his head that that was a variant or if that was the girl. So here is an example of the shelf today. It's kind of blurry. I just pulled one offline. This was from a few years ago, where you can see the different Downy packaging. The top shelf has Downy flavors, variants. The middle shelf has the April Fresh, which was like a huge SKU. And the one below that was their infusions line, which again, this is before the redesign, so it doesn't necessarily feel super millennial. It's just kind of what we're probably used to seeing when you're growing up. So we went in and asked consumers, to pick. We actually mocked up our Downy design, which you can see on the far right is where it ended up. But you can see that we had consumers go in and we had these kinds of packaging on shelf to see if people would pick those, if they would engage with them. But we also were doing a second test. So there was really two things going on. One, do people pick the package off shelf? And two, when they think of Downy, what are they drawing? Are they drawing the snuggle bear? Are they drawing the little girl? Is a little girl needed? And what we came to understand is that the April Fresh pink scent is the only line extension that people really noticed the girl being on. But if we kind of removed her on the other scents, then people didn't really miss her. And so that whole market research campaign, I think it took like a few months to build the creative, a few months to test it, and then actually get approval from the brand. So it was a long project. We had a photo shoot. There was a ton that went into this, just deciding whether we should keep the girl on there or not. But we're also simultaneously working on a brand redesign. So does this speak to millennials without losing our current market, which was more of our parents' generation? So you can see here, I don't know why this is so pixelated, how we still did keep the girl. So you can see the original one with the flower scents and the petals flying everywhere, to a nice new clean and crisp layout that did have the little girl on the packaging, so a different girl. And then if you remember from the first slide of the in-store shelf, there was all those bright, red, blue, orange bottles. And we did also update the infusions line, which is more scent focused. So we did similar testing where we would put these on shelves, and would people be picking these to shop, or were they really going towards the to the other brands out there? So that was an example of qualitative research. Ryan, I don't know if you have any questions about that, or if you want me to dive into the quantitative focus.
Yeah. Before you move on to the quantitative part, I'm curious. You talk about the qualitative research in respect to trying to understand what the millennial wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that there are different versions of Downy. I was curious if the qualitative research that you guys performed informed for example, the current slide that you have up there, that product line, or were you trying to shift the whole brand to look more like, or be more attractive to millennials? So what's kind of the strategy there?
Yeah, it was kind of twofold. So we really wanted to redesign Downy to speak to millennials, and it really started with the infusions line. But as we started doing this work, they realized that they really wanted to, I don't know if you can see the little flower symbol above the Ultra Downy. That was an emblem we created to kind of bring the brand line together so that millennials who are more scent focused would try these, but they'd also have the brand recognition and heritage of, oh, this is the brand my mom used, with the April Fresh and the other variants. So it was twofold. It really was trying to bring in millennials, but also refresh the brand so that it felt relevant. So we wanted to still keep, the iconic pink lid, the blue bottle, the girl on the package, but also enhance and refresh the look, so that we didn't lose our core customer base, but then also create more sense for millennials to try, or in like packaging that they would engage with, and it actually would look pretty in your laundry, not just like a hot pink bottle.
Fair enough. So it sounds like the main product line was updated, and this new product line was more positioned towards your younger generation customer.
Yeah, they both were kind of, but we didn't want to lose our core market, which was the older generation. So they really, wanted to make this the millennial first one, just based on also some additional research they'd done with like millennial behavior, which I think would be like secondary research, where they went to like, I can't think of the company right now what the name is, but or IRI, I think they do a lot of like trend work like that. So you can go purchase like, this is what millennials feel about scent. I think UC actually helps out with some different tests too.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Any other questions about this?
No, I'm excited for the quantitative part. That's the research I do. So.
Yeah, with the numbers. All right, so I work at 8451, and we, as many of you know, we know customers and we know how to connect you to customers. So we use a lot of different sophisticated tools and technologies where we actually track the Kroger Plus card data and make sure that we're giving Kroger customers the best experience so that they feel like they're having a personalized experience from any kind of communication that they get from us, and really trying to build customer loyalty. So even in our name, 8451, it's the longitude of our headquarters, but it also represents the way that we work. We take a long-term approach to data analytics. So how can we understand customers? We have like years of data, but a lot of the marketing tools we use look back at 8 weeks or more of shopping behavior to make sure that we're sending you personalized coupons or marketing, different, like getting in front of you in the way that you want to be communicated with. So we take a lot of our skills, the data, the science, the customer experience, plus our value, which is, relentless delivery and putting the customers at the center of every decision we make. So we're really trying to make sure that you're, as a Kroger shopper, getting the best experience, versus I know some other companies will, want their brand to shine through. We really want what's best for the customer. And so it really does all begin with the customer. We have over 60 million households. So 1 out of 2 households in the United States that shop at Kroger or one of the Kroger brands. So you can see that out of the 28, we have 2,800 stores in 35 states. That's a ton of people shopping in our stores. That's a ton of data we can, receive to help us figure out, cross-store campaigns and different things like that. Like that's a huge data set that we're playing with. And the vast majority of our analysis are done by leveraging what people are doing anyway. So if you have loaded coupons to your Plus card, we can track that. We track what you purchase in the store. And we analyze the data to make sure that, we're not only stocking the shelves with things you're going to purchase, but also making sure you're getting coupons for what you purchase. And really making sure that the experience is best for you, which I think is really cool. We're a business accelerator, so we enable power and decisions. We use innovation to drive values, and we create a value in the ecosystem. So there really is data and quantitative research behind most, if not every, decision we make. Just making sure that we're analyzing all of this large data set that we bring in. And so then we take that information and we not only put the customers first, but we also work with over 300 CPGs to make sure that they're also, utilizing this data, whether that's helping them to think of a brand line extension, like, are people shopping cherry right now? Should we be making a cherry flavor? Or like people, I think there was a trend out there. I feel like we learned about this, Ryan, where like every time a male went in that had a kid to buy diapers, he'd also pick up a 6-pack of beer. Like, would it make sense to put beer and diapers near each other in a grocery store? Like we were able to cross and cut up that kind of data to help CPGs and Kroger figure out the best way to make the store shoppable for customers. Or if they want to come up with different campaigns on their own, like I mentioned, like if cherry becomes a hot trend and, the CPG has access to this data, they can actually buy into this program called Stratum, where they can purchase the data of their category and really splice in different ways. And if they see that there is cherry growing up a storm, they might come out with a cherry variant. So while a customer is at the center of every decision, even noticing that customers might want something for cherry, it's a symbiotic relationship for CPGs, because they can also take that data set and splice it for their own research or their own marketing programs that they want to run. So then this is just more about the value we create for clients and how robust our data set is. So we have about 19 billion annual transactions, like 62 million households, like I mentioned, 1 million unique UPCs. So every product you have in the store, for example, with the Downy, those 6 different scents have 6 different UPCs that we're tracking at that level of, like, are people buying lavender more, or are people buying April Fresh? And we can track that, and we can say the household linked to this cart. So, I mean, if you think about it, like growing up, my family had 1+ card with my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. Like, we all would buy different things. So they would start to see, like, that's what our household buys. And then when I got my own Plus card, that probably dropped off from their data. So it's they have ways to track those trends and to see what you're purchasing in each cart. Is my household more likely to purchase Diet Pepsi, or my parents were purchasing Mountain Dew for my brother? Like, you'd be able to track those things at a very granular level. We have 32,000 convenience stores and grocery stores. There's a ton of categories in different multi-formats of our stores. We have a ton of ways to slice the information. It can be on transaction, it can be on cart, it could be on different shopper market groups we've created based on lifestyle, price sensitivity. There's just tons of ways to slice the data. And so a few examples of how the actual project would come to life would be, one, a CPG, like I mentioned, is thinking of coming up with a new variant. The CPG might work with the merchandising team at 8451 to figure out ways to slice the data, or different reports. And Stratum has like a bunch of different reports in there that you can actually like say, I want to see what people cross shop, and you run the cross shop report and you put in the UPCs that you want to check it against. And if you purchased this data, then you're able to see that and make that decision. Another would be Kroger, also like trying to figure out what should be on their shelves. Like, should they allow Diet Pepsi or whoever to add a cherry flavor, or does it make sense to keep the shelf stocked with actual traditional Pepsi? And that would come from Kroger. So there's all these different clients coming to 8451 and asking how to best move forward with their question. Some of these need to be turned around in a week. Some of them are more long, like if it was creating a new flavor. It really just depends on the actual business question you're trying to answer to figure out how long the project will take. And so again, it's impacting decisions across the business, whether that's the customer strategy, making sure you have enough assortment and cultural relevance, what store format there is. We have the super Krogers, we have the tiny Krogers. Like, there's tons of different thoughts that go into each one of those, making sure that we're stocking, making sure that the price is optimized, making sure we have meaningful promotions and relevant communication. We're talking to people the way they want to be talked to, not just the way that we think we should. So there's tons of different solutions out there. It just really depends on what the business question that someone has is. But at the end of the day, the customer is at the center of every decision we make, so when we have like pricing strategy or sales planning, or like I said, assortment and loyalty programs and category management, we want to make sure that we're answering on what the customer themselves want. Kroger actually has a loyalty communications team, which I mentioned that is the team I'm on. So we actually look at shopper data and ensure that we're sending you coupons for things you've purchased, to make sure that you're getting value in the coupons. We're not just sending you coupons for things we want you to try. We're rewarding you for shopping with Kroger. And so you'll receive 12 coupons based on products you've purchased in your buying history. We have other mailers, of course, that are to try to get customers to try different things. But Kroger really does ask any CPG that wants to market with Kroger that they participate in this loyalty mailer, so that Kroger customers can feel the reward from Kroger. And so customers are really changing our world through data. Here are just some other companies that really use data to help drive other decisions as well. Like you can see Tinder has this is older, but like almost 1 million daily swipes on Tinder. It took me a second. It's a holiday weekend, right? Yeah. But you can see that there's just tons of data out there that's like ready to be collected and spliced. And so really, you just need the business question to know which way to go. Even for that Downy example, like until you're pose the question or someone raises the question of where should we take this brand, no one should be doing that based on a feeling, just because of the digital age and so many ways we have to collect data. So we have an unprecedented shopper depth of actual household purchases. It just drives so deep into the data, like I've mentioned multiple times. Like there are so many ways to splice it up. And our mission is really to personalize the customer experience with the brands they trust. Kroger has 2-decade advantage using data to connect with customers one-to-one. We know our customers better than anyone else. Data is our most valuable asset. It allows us to create a personalized experience for every customer. So that truly is the root of 8451. We do have partnerships with other market research companies just to make sure that we are providing robust information that's well-rounded. Obviously, this is super quantitative. That doesn't take away from the need of qualitative research as well. So there's just a ton of different ways. And like I mentioned, it all depends on the business question that you're trying to answer to figure out the best form of research to use. And that's it. I don't know if there's any, I think I covered most of the questions, but I don't know if you have any other ones, Ryan.
Yeah. So one thing, I really try to stress with the students is the order in which research occurs, right? To have the research question, or have the research objective rather, pull questions from that objective, and then collect the data, right? Mm-hmm. And I was curious to get your take on that. I know that when you're always collecting data, it's a data collecting company, right? Mm-hmm. How do you balance using the data to find the answer to the right question and, picking the right question to collect data on, right?
Yeah. So I think that's like twofold. One, like I mentioned, CPGs and like our customers have, data that they want answers to, like, should I make a cherry flavor? And that's a very straightforward question. And to keep your company afloat, you have to answer those questions. But 8451 also has an innovations team. And so they're actually just looking at different ways to splice the data, or maybe they are just at the store and are like, it would be really nice if the ketchup was never out. And that kind of sparks an idea of we should have a stocking initiative to make sure that we're using our data to make sure that stuff's always on the shelves. Like ketchup shouldn't run out in July with all the barbecues. So like, how can you proactively look at that data to solve those questions? A lot of it probably is just like a spark of an idea, or people run random tests to like learn the tool, and then they discover something random that like no one thought of before. I think it's just like playing with the data, like having a team that's made to innovate and think about different ways to cut the data, but then also like you have to be answering the business questions first that are coming to you from other clients and customers. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. I have one more question before I move into some of the other student questions.
Okay.
And that is, what is the role and relationship between primary and qualitative research, or quantitative and qualitative research? Sorry. Yeah. In
my opinion, qualitative research is, I feel like it can go back and forth. Like qualitative research for making sure customers like your packaging real time before you go build out a ton of the packaging makes a ton of sense. But then also you have to see that the numbers are there and people are actually purchasing it. So like qualitative, I think helps you to figure out like the general direction to go, whereas quantitative backs that up with real numbers. And on the flip side, if you see that you should add a cherry flavor to your line with quantitative numbers, you wouldn't just then build cherry. You'd want to do some qualitative research to make sure that customers would actually enjoy it. Just because like Fanta has a cherry flavor doesn't mean that, you know, someone else should have a cherry flavor. So you like could see that trend in the numbers, but that doesn't mean it's relevant for your brand. So you'd also want to do qualitative research to make sure that people would actually be willing to purchase that, like look at the packaging. So I think it just really depends on the question again that you're trying to answer.
Gotcha. Yeah, to kind of reiterate in terms that we use in our course, it seems like qualitative research helps form the direction of the research, and the quantitative research empirically tests. It answers the question to the research. Right?
Yep.
All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up some more. I think you answered most of the student questions. Yeah, so I was wondering, because 8451 is not only a market research company, but it's a market research management company, right? So it's kind of the intermediary between Kroger's data and the companies that sell products in Kroger, right? So one student was particularly interested in what is the interaction between 8451 and Kroger, and 8451 and some of the companies. I saw Unilever and P&G up there, for example.
So 8451 is technically owned by Kroger. We're considered their like marketing arm. Kroger used to work with dunnhumby, and dunnhumby sold a part of 8450 of their business, which became 8451, which is owned by Kroger. It is Kroger Plus Card data, but there are certain things that like 8451 can't see from Kroger, and that like there's like this confidentiality between some of them that like we can't know some of Kroger's specific metrics that 8451 can know and own, and same like CPGs can't see certain information as well. So it's really like scrubbed data that CPGs are looking at too, but it's so that everything can stay, like you said, ethical, and that there can't be, decisions based on that would only benefit Kroger. Like it's a symbiotic relationship. So CPGs are able to buy some of the data set to splice on their own, and that's how they would interact with 8451. They can also, like the team I'm on is communications, and so we help CPGs market through Kroger vehicles. So Kroger also does that, and we're sending it to households based on your shopper behavior. So there's really like a merchandising side and a communication side of the business. That two different things, but they both interact with CPGs and Kroger in a different way.
Gotcha. Awesome. One other question a student asked is, what is the typical timeline and duration of a market research project from start to finish?
It really just depends on the ask. Like the rebranding one takes a while because the creative team needs to come up with ideas. You start that qualitative research, then you follow it up with quantitative research. But it also, like if someone wanted to know in Stratum a quick market research question like is cherry trending, you could probably do that in 48 hours and have that answer back just based on splicing the data. But if you're actually like going out to do a market research on your own, so like say for your class, you have your students create a Qualtrics survey, they send out the survey, they go through the data, like that would probably take like a month or more. We have a whole market research class that was dedicated to that, and I think it was like a 10 to 12 week program. Like it just really depends on the question and how deep you need to go in to get the answers.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wish we had time to start and finish a research project in this marketing research, but we only get 6 weeks.
Oh.
I think that would be difficult to
Yeah, I think you would probably, I mean, unless that was all your students were working on, that would be a fast track. But like I mentioned, and you've mentioned, 8451 is a data collection company. So we just have to pull the report. We're not building the tools, the correct questions, building the focus group, building the target audiences. Like all of that takes so much time to make sure you're getting an answer that's actually thought out and based on your business objectives. So like it takes months to make sure that you're like focusing in on the right thing, asking the right questions, getting the right answers in an unbiased way.
Gotcha. And that's where I study. I study bias.
Yep.
Personal research. Okay, so last question. Thank you for your time and spending the last 45 minutes talking with us. The student asks, do you ever decide to not pursue a market research project? And if so, why?
I mean, like unless it was like unethical, I don't know I'm like trying to think of an example of a market research question you wouldn't pursue. Like, I mean, maybe if you did some like secondary research and figured out it was a bad idea to begin with, like if a CPG like that sells pasta was like, maybe I'm going to start selling dog food under the same brand. And they did like some secondary research that people don't want to eat like pasta that is also dog food. Like they might not move forward with that research because the question was not a good one. But that would probably be, I don't know, that's probably a bad example. I think it really like you would always start it to make sure that there was merit behind it, but it's easy to walk away if you can easily with just some front end like trend work or research, secondary research, realize that maybe it's like not something that should move forward with. But who knows? Maybe you could do it and it would be successful. And you tested it out and asked those questions. And yeah, I don't think that there would be a time unless it was like illegal to not move to like not pursue or look into it.
Gotcha.
Do you have any examples? I'm trying to like, that's kind of like that's a good question.
Yeah. So I know that Target had to put limits on its what it wanted to research and what it shouldn't research. And one example of this, and it's now famous, this is kind of brought Target back to life in the early 2000s. When they implemented this, big data was, just becoming a thing, and they were trying to capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they hired this market research team to predict trends and relationships between products that people bought and their home life.
Mm-hmm.
One example of this is they have their own like Target Plus card.
Yeah.
But one example of this is this dad, family man, with 2 children, I believe, went to Target, and he went there a lot, but he got an email, or not an email, coupons in the mail, I guess, a mailer, I think as they would call in the market research world, of coupons. And they were all coupons for pregnant women.
Yeah, I've heard this, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of infamous now, but he was upset, so he called Target and was like, I'm not a pregnant woman. I would really appreciate coupons that, kind of facilitated my needs, right? Mm-hmm. Diapers and beer example, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he later found out that the reason he was getting those coupons was because his daughter was purchasing things such as unscented lotion and different products that are related to this pregnant category. And he came to realize, a month later, that his daughter was actually pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
So, the infamous kind of example here is that Target found out that his daughter was pregnant before he did.
Right.
And decided that they didn't want to do that because that customer wasn't very happy with Target. That's not the way that the dad wanted to find out. And they kind of rolled back some of their research.
We actually do have sensitivity fields that we put on our coupon. So if it were something like a pregnancy test that we would be sending out, that's a bad example. Well, anyway, if you bought something like that of a pregnancy test, you'd have to have bought it in the last like 2 weeks so that it was like super relevant to what you purchased. But it like to that example, like we don't want to be sending, puppy food to someone that doesn't have a puppy anymore. So we do put those sensitivity flags on there in that sense. So like, yeah, I do think that can, being smart about that is a good way to look at market research. I thought you meant more like looking into that, like posing those questions,
Yeah. No, awesome. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us and being our first guest in Marketing Unmasked.
I love your logo. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, pretty minimalist, and cost me like $5. So
awesome. Marketing Unmasked.
Yeah, but yeah, do you have any final thoughts before we kind of conclude this lecture?
No, I mean, I think that this is great that you're doing this. I think that students hopefully get a lot of value of hearing real life experiences. Market research comes up in ways you would never expect it to. In most companies, there's always some kind of business question that's being asked. So having this tool set or this like knowledge and being able to talk about it will just help you further your career. Because there will always be a need to look into why you're answering certain questions.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, kind of mastering the principles and basics of marketing research will help facilitate your general knowledge in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Even if, you don't want to end up in market research, knowing how market research is conducted is imperative if you want to end up in advertising or branding or any kind of communications, right? Sales.
Yep.
I think, understanding how we come up with questions and how we reach conclusions to those questions is not only good for marketing, but good for life in general.
Yes, I agree with that.
Cool. All right. I'll log off here then. Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. I know the students will love this, so
awesome.
I really appreciate your time and your effort that you put in.
Yeah, no problem. I hope they enjoy it. And they can reach out to me with any questions. You have my email if you want to give it to them if people have other questions.
Cool. Yeah, I'll make sure to put it in the Canvas website and not the YouTube website.
Okay.